Today's topic is human translation, which is the continuation from last week's topic. Last week we discussed machine translation in detail. Right now we are going to compare it with human translation and see what human translation has to offer. What is human translation? Human translation, or HT in short, by definition, is when a human translator rather than a machine translates the text. Okay, human translation is the oldest form of translation there is because machines are relatively new and machine translation was discovered later on in 1940s, but humans have been performing the activity of translation since a long time. This translation relies purely on human intelligence to convert one way of saying things into another way. And while human translation comes in many different kinds and flavors, it is still till now the widely used translation method because the machine is not able to comprehend what a human can. Here, you need to understand that there is a long debate going on with the advancement in machine translation technologies that whether the machine could replace the human translator. That can never happen. Although to some scholars that is possible that in the near future a machine may be able to replace the human translator. However, due to the complexity of human emotions and the underlying meaning a context has to offer, and the fact that you need to see your audience and their cultural and linguistic aspirations where translation is considered, a machine is still not able to replace human. Although if you look at the advancement right now in robotics, there are robots which are able to show emotions or perceive human emotions to some extent, but it is still to some extent. And an ideal machine which is able to perceive or perceive human emotions or rather work like a human, real human, is still far out of reach. However, if we say that still happens or the advancements still go on like this and there is a machine translation software that can translate very well, uh, there is still a need for post editing and a pre-editing, and that is where right now in this modern world the human translators come to work. They need to pre-edit a text and make it machine readable so machine can read it properly without any ambiguities and translate it properly. And when a machine is done with it, there is the need for post editing where you tailor it according to your specific needs or the need of your audience or the need of your client. So, in short, a machine is still not able to replace human translation. Then, right now in this modern era, there are several types of translation providers, and those are all humans. So, where is human translation right now in terms of translation providers? We have the freelance translators, which are working individually in the field of translation or the translation markets. Then you have the translation agencies, and these are the organizations which have full-time translators or they outsource project to freelance translators or where freelance translators are employed when needed. And these translators may work alone or in some groups to manually manage the files. Most of the translation agencies are using softwares nowadays to manage a lot of things, but the translation being done essentially is by humans. Okay, despite providing top quality translations, these translations are very good, they're top notch, but still they are struggling to compete with high volume projects within a reasonable cost and time frame. Um, and they are very expensive because they have a limited number of translators and they use manual processes, and they have a 9 to 5 style workflow right now, so they cost you a lot. Okay, they are best when you have a small project, and when you have a project where you need people who are the master of the subject. Okay, because that will cost you a little less as compared to when you need a high quality human translation and you have a fairly large project, because then you would have to spend a lot of money, and sometimes you don't have that much money because there is a set rate for per word rate for translation. Okay, and for rare languages that is very high because you can rarely find translators in those languages. But for some languages it is very low because a lot of people know those languages and are easily available. Okay, if you have a low budget, a big project, okay, you can't pay more, that is where your crowdsourcing platforms come in. Okay, here there are thousands of translators in crowdsourcing platforms, and they work simultaneously on that platform that allows seamless management of the project. These are all human translations, okay, and they are charging very less as compared to your translation agencies. But on these platforms, there are still tools, sophisticated tools, which are being used by people. Technically, what is happening right now is you've got people who are freelancers who are working on freelancing sites or who have established themselves well, so they are known freelancers, they're reining in the customers. Then you have people who got employed or freelancers who got employed or are connected with translation agencies, they're earning through that. They're also very professional and they have good education, good command of the subject. What both of these freelance and translation agencies, the translators working here have is a ton of experience. They get hired quickly. Now you see there are some new people coming in. They don't have a ton of experience, or there are students who want to work part time. So they move towards the crowdsourcing platforms because all you need to do is fill out your profile and you're there, and when someone needs you they can contact you, or you can establish yourself there easier. So the cost here is very less, and the amount of people you can get is very high. Thus, that is being favored right now. Okay, let's move on. Then, for translation services provided by human translators, these are all specialized professional services. Sorry, because here a translator or a human translator is a specialist in one field. So you will see people specializing in business translation services, which would do they would translate material related to business like brochures, maybe contracts, or you know things which business requires. Then you have certified translation services. These are the translators who are certified in their field, and when they translate, they have their own signatures and things that make your translation stand out. Like perhaps you need a legal translation, but it is translation of a death certificate or something like that. So mostly what the government nowadays are asking for is a certified translation. That means it's stamped. The person who is translating it is recognized by the government, or the company that is translating that is recognized by the government, and they are allowed to stamp it that this is an accurate translation and there are no mistakes in there. Then you have the medical translation services, very easy. Marketing translation services. Here, the main important thing is advertisement, because when you are translating an advertisement, it is very difficult to do so, because the language of the advertisement and the need of the advertisement is very different from what is the need of a literary translation or an academic translation. So, marketing translation services. Then you have the transcript translation services, because when you take out a transcript for any audio or video files, it comes out very different, and sometimes you need to edit that transcript to make it compatible with your video file, and you need to run it like subtitles. So that is transcript translation services, because they will alter your text to fit your time frames. If you still don't get it, you can raise the question in the class for transcript translation services. Legal translation services, all the legal matters like your death certificate, your marriage certificate, your ID cards, maybe your passport, all the legal matters. Aerospace and defense translation services. Now these are military translation services mostly. They have their own translators. They have their own contracts, and it is not easy to get to get one of these contracts. Okay, because there is the need for confidentiality and secrecy here. That is also the case for medical, but for medical translation services, you can easily get certified. But to get associated with the military, that's a bit difficult, because you need to join them, and like the hiring style is different for military. Then you have financial translation services. These are mostly done for banks and other areas of finance. So for businesses, sometimes there is some general translator who would translate all of your contracts and stuff, and then you have a specialized translation for translating matters related to finance. Okay, because the terms for finance are sometimes very different, and you need specialization to understand a lot of terms related to finance sector. Then you have immigration translation services. These are the translation services that are provided for people who don't speak the language. Like, let's say someone immigrated to from Pakistan to England or America, they don't speak English, so they would have a lot of problem. Now here there is uh, this right now, immigration translation services is kind of like a broad term, because under here would come your medical translation services, your legal translation services, maybe financial translation as well, maybe especially for, you can say right now the main things under immigration translation services would be your medical translation services and your legal translation services. Okay. Mm, then is your academic translation services. These are your academic articles, okay, your thesis, because right now for thesis sometimes you need to translate an abstract. Like if you go to Islamic University, uh, when you write your thesis, you have your synopsis and your abstract. So you can opt to write your thesis in English, but your synopsis and your abstract needs to be translated into Arabic. So if you just Google translate it, sometimes there are a lot of mistakes, and if you don't speak the language yourself, then you can't submit that unaltered or with uh, synopsis or an abstract without any post editing. So here, if you even translate it with Google, that could lessen some of your burden, but you would still need to pay some amount of money to a human translator to post edit it, okay, or proofread it to make sure that it is correct linguistically. Then you have your website translation services. This website translation services is kind of coming under your localization industry right now. uh, Localization in translation. Okay, previously this was okay, website translation services, but right now what is happening is your websites have some content, okay, or they're selling a product, or it is always pretty much related to some product or some special thing. But most of the languages, they are culturally different, so your um, all the material needs to be localized. It needs to be culturally accurate for the language you are translating it into. This would be covered in the next lecture in this week, that is localization and translation. So I will not be getting into the detail of website translation services. Okay, um, this will be covered in the later lecture. A multilingual website development, that is when you develop the website side by side in two languages. Okay, then you have multilingual SEO, that is again related to your computing and website. This will all be covered in the next lecture, all three terms. Then you have YouTube translations and captioning. Okay, you can do your auto captioning for YouTube. It is not correct most of the time. So you can generate your transcript, or you can give your transcript for YouTube to the transcript translation services. They would alter it specifically for YouTube. Okay, because for sometimes on YouTube you have your podcast and you have your channels, um, which come under special domains. Like you have your cooking channel, you can have your channel related to computers, you can have your channel related to general technology, and there are everyone needs the translation specifically tailored for that. So what they have right now is a special head people who are, you know, who are really good in translating things that are going to go on YouTube. And they're going to make sure that when you upload the video on YouTube, it comes accurately. Because sometimes, especially for Arabic and Urdu, if you are translating and then you try to merge it in the video and upload it, it doesn't come out that correct. So you need to be really good in the technical aspects and the computing aspects. Then you have your document translation services. This is like a general thing, because they have ready-made, template available sometimes, and they just put your material into it. Like right now, for your CNIC, right now it's available in English as well in Pakistan, but before, when you were going abroad, sometimes you needed your CNIC translated in English, so or French or Spanish or any other language. So they had the templates already made, everything set out. All they needed to do was put your CNIC number, your name, and other details, and then just print it out and give it to you. So they have their own templates and their own style, but this is separate thing, document translation services. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. This is a difference between official translation and certified translation. Okay. Um, the official translation is that the translation needs to be completed by a registered professional translation or a translation company. Right now in Pakistan, sometimes AGC asks you to translate your document. So AGC is currently recognizing translations from NAML. So that would be kind of like an official or certified translation. For legal translation, I don't know if anyone has visited a court or something, but if you go to Islamabad and their court, there are clerical staff sitting there, and they have their own template. They have templates available and stuff, but they would put it in, and according to the format prescribed by the court and stuff, they would translate. They would translate the material for you, and this is stamped by them, so that is your certified translation. You can try to read it yourself and then try to come up with differences on your own. You can read an article about it, or you can just search the web about it, and they will provide you some information about official translation and certified translation, and you can just note it down. Okay. Okay, the advantages of human translation. It's very simple. It is highly accurate because human can interpret content and capture the same meaning rather than simply translating the words. Okay. Human translators can review their work and provide a quality assessment for you. Okay, they can capture the same meaning rather than translating the work, and they can provide the quality assessment. They can interpret the creative use of language. For example, if you have a pun, a metaphor, or a slogan, then a machine would not be able to translate it accordingly because it will not be able to perceive your emotion or your intended meaning. Then your professional translators could understand the differences between the languages they are translating into and deal with the problems accordingly. A machine, however, would not be able to come up with a creative solution. Rather, it would just work on the principles you have fed it down. Okay. Then is humans can spot pieces of content where literal translation isn't possible and find the most suitable alternatives. Sometimes you cannot translate it literally and you have to explain some of the content. Right now, if you consider the word zakat, zakat for us is a charity that is compulsory on you and you have a set pattern. But we know it because we are Muslims and it is in our cultures. Let's go and translate that for the West. You can translate it as charity. Charity isn't compulsory. You can translate it as alms, or alms is not something that is zakat because that comes under sadaqah, the charity. Okay. So now you have a problem. There is no word for your compulsory charity that is zakat. What you can do is you can translate it as charity, okay, or as alms, but there you would provide a reference in your footnotes. You would explain the whole concept behind zakat, or you can just put it in brackets, a brief concept about zakat in brackets. So that is a suitable way of doing translation. But only a human would be able to do it because a machine would translate zakat either as zakat or as charity or as alms without any explanation in brackets or in footnotes. But without this explanation, that is not a correct translation or a correct practice of translation. Okay, let us consider the idioms and the metaphors. Each language has their own kind and they depend upon the culture of that language. Every language has a culture. So one language might perceive it differently from the other language. So when translating these metaphors and slogans, sometimes it is very difficult. So you need to adopt the strategy of explaining them after you have found out a suitable idiom or metaphor for them. Okay, the disadvantages of human translation. It takes a very long time because you need to take care of the intricacies of the language, and translators would rarely work for free because it is a very time consuming and challenging job. Um, then, unless you use a translation agency with access to thousands of translators, you are limited to only one language and only one domain. That is again something that is difficult because let's say you want to translate into a rare language and the translator for the rare language is not available, so you are in some deep trouble here. You would have to try to figure you would have to figure out a way on your own to do that. And for those rare languages, machine translation is sometimes also not available. Okay, when to use machine translation and human translation? So when would you be using machine translation? When you have a large amount of content available, okay, and you just need to get the gist of the content, okay, and you are short on time, let's say, and even if you want like a general meaning, let's say I have a text, someone sent it to me, um, and I need to go through it once, then maybe write something more about it in my language, or I need to write something related to it from in my language, so I can just put it in Google or whatever software I want to use and get general meaning of that content and then write on my own. That would be it. So when you need a general meaning, general idea, or gist, okay, when your translation never reaches the final audience, you are translating a research as research for another piece of content. Let's say I'm writing an article. For my article, I need some data. The data is available in, let's say, Spanish. I I don't speak Spanish. What I can do is take the whole document. There is bulk translation. We have discussed it already, where you translate the whole document in one go. I would just go there, maybe get a trial version, translate the whole document in one go, get the gist of it. What is it talking about? Now I know like there are problems there, but you are a learned person, you just get the gist of it. Then maybe you can read another article about it and sort it out somehow, put it in your research, and you're done. You can quote the original document. Okay, translating documents for eternal use within the company, provided your 100% accuracy is not needed. You just again need a general idea or a rough idea about what the document is talking about. Mm, all right. To partially translate large chunks of content for a human translator to improve upon. Right now, again, you bulk translated a document, then you would give the human translator. Now, human translator has some aid available, some form of it is written. If you are bulk translating, that means the editing part is also somewhat done, because for bulk translating, the software would not be switching much of the document. It would be available in the same style as the original document. So all the human translator needs to do is keep the original in front of him, keep the translated one there, and just quickly or take some time, because it does take some time, read the original document and match it with the translated one, proofread it and correct it. So this is also a place where you can use machine translation, and technically this last point is done when you are short on time, when you need to match a deadline. Okay. Examples of when to use a human translation. A human translation is needed when you need 100% accuracy. Okay, there you cannot take your chances there. Most cases are when your translated content is received by a consumer audience. That means the people need it culturally tailored. They need it according to their linguistic level and linguistic expectations, and in a particular format. Maybe you need to publish it. Okay, then you cannot take your chances on accuracy. Okay, when you have a duty of care to provide accurate translations, for example, legal documents, product instructions, medical guidelines, health and safety content, that is something where you need 100% accuracy, because if you make a mistake here, it will cause a lot of problems. Alright, when translating marketing material or other text for creative language use, that is where you need human language, because creative is where a human comes in. A machine cannot do creative, any form of creative. Okay, another thing you need to understand here is, um, I would narrate it from an example. There was a Russian president. Okay, and it is from history. um, and he said that something in Russian which went along the line that we will live to see you buried. He said it to the American side, and the American side perceived it, the translator, rather than translating it as we will live to see you buried, he translated it literally as we will bury you. And you can see the difference right here. Um, he just, this is like Google translated it. He just took it literally. He doesn't put any emphasis into it. Maybe he was like a newbie translator or something. But this is how blunders are done. Okay, this is like a big blunder here. A human translator, a professional certified human translator was needed to, because this caused a lot of chaos and between the both parties. So the correct meaning was not conveyed here. Okay, moving on. Right now, this is a comparison between human translation and machine translation. The comparison is for uh, poetry, because this is a creative form of writing, and for a machine to translate poetry, it's very difficult because of the intricacies of the languages that poetry employs. So you can compare it yourself. If you see the translation done by Google, it is okay, it gives you the meaning, the gist, but it is not correct according to how poetry should be translated. Okay, were you translating poetry in prose format? This is some okay. You can work it out because it's a free kind of free poetry, a free verse. Should you translate it according to the meter, then this translation would not be correct. You would need a human translation because machine right now cannot follow a meter for poetry. Compare it yourself, read it out, and you will see the comparison is very easy. You can see it clearly. Then is a class task for an assignment, 5 marks. I want you to take any text, English or Urdu. You can take 1 to 2 paragraphs. Okay, make sure your original text is there along with reference from where you took it. Then I need you to machine translate it. Make sure you note down the software you are using. You can use any software, Google, uh, Reverso, Systran, anything that is available freely and easily. Use it, translate it. You can either go from Urdu to English or English to Urdu. Okay, make sure it's um, at least like minimum should be one good paragraph, about half a page, and maximum you can go is full page, because for some systems you would face difficulty, so because there's a word count or a word limit for how much you could translate. So translate it, and I would suggest you write your name on the top, your date, name, and roll number. Then write the source text, um, language, source text colon language. Okay, then the source text, then your reference for source text. Then on the next page you go target language, then 2 colons your language, then your target text which got produced. Before the target language, you should write your system, which software you are using for translation, the translated text, all of it, um, and then you can submit it. Okay, I would upload the it in Google Classroom, and you can upload all of your assignments there for 5 marks. Okay, and that is it for today. You can discuss all of these assignments with me during the class time as well. Okay.